Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Norway Chess 2023 classical and Armageddon style chess tournament where every single game is worth 3 points and the Armageddon is 1 or 1.5. We're halfway through the tournament, and also thank you for dealing with my various camera settings, and moving is always a pain, so I'm still figuring out all of that good stuff. Today, we said goodbye to Hikaru. And that's what we are going to start with. We said goodbye to Hikaru in a unique fashion. As always, I've got some Hikaru games. I've got a Carlsen game for you. I've got an update on the standings. I've got an update on the world rankings. Here we go. Today it's Hikaru versus Firouzja. Firouzja is currently battling for world number 2, and he is currently battling for number 1 in this tournament. It is Hikaru Firouzja. They are number 2 and number 3, trailing only Fabiano Caruana, and their classical game of chess begins with e4. Hikaru plays the Sicilian defense? Okay. That's wild. Why is it wild? Well, he's playing for a win. Hikaru's playing for a win with black. Hikaru thinks that Firouzja is a volatile individual and thinks that he has good winning chances. And Hikaru plays e5, man. Like, Hikaru doesn't play anything else except e5. Now, one of the reasons he played e5 is because Firouzja does not play the Spanish. Firouzja is an Italian connoisseur. Firouzja loves the Italian. Loves it. And Hikaru, I suppose, just wasn't in the mood and decided, I'm going to play combative chess. I'm not in the mood for e4, e5. I'm going to play knight c6, and against Firouzja's Rossalimo Sicilian, I'm going to play g6. Now, I imagine that Hikaru had something prepared here. He probably had either the Kalashnikov or the Sveshnikov Sicilian prepared. I really do not think that Hikaru was going to play the accelerated dragon, but I don't know. So Alireza plays bishop b5, and Hikaru plays g6. This is the main line. Now white has the option to take here and do various things with these two pawns, or castle. And Firouzja castles. And this is a modern approach. You delay the capture on c6, Hikaru does this, and now black has the option to take really with either pawn, Hikaru does this. Black also could take like this and then try to play e5, and it's just a different thing, but he does this, opening up the b file, potential to play, d5 if he wants it, d6, e5 if he wants it, or just do nothing. Firouzja plays rook e1, Hikaru plays a massive sideline, which is queen c7, and Firouzja plays knight a3. Queen c7 is not the most popular move. Generally, black is playing some e5s here, or black is playing knight f6 and putting the knight in the center like this. This is a very, 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 very flexible move. It's, in many ways, white can even do e5 now and prevent the move knight f6. But Firouzja plays the move knight a3 almost instantly, so clearly he knows what he's doing, and Hikaru plays knight h6, which has never been played before. Or at least it's taken us to extremely unique territory already, which is why Firouzja spends 26 minutes to push a pawn 1 square. And they wonder why classical chess is difficult to put on television. Like, folks, I'm sorry, okay? I am going to go on a mini rant right now. Imagine you are at a sports bar. You know nothing about sports, but you are hanging out with a couple of your friends, and they are watching the television. You are drinking beer or juice if for some reason you're 12 years old and at a sports bar. Your friends are able to explain any sport to you on screen, with maybe the exception of baseball, very quickly. How on earth do you sit staring at a screen for 26 minutes and the guy pushes the pawn 1 square? Like, this is unmarketable, I'm sorry. It's very difficult to market this unless you already have climbed some degree of the mountain that is the chess learning curve. I'm just saying. Anyway, the move c3 is designed to blunt the bishop and play the move d4. Why Alireza spent 26 minutes? I have absolutely no idea. I am unqualified to answer that question. He might have calculated c3, d3, d4, h3, any and all sorts of these moves. Hikaru just castles, and Firouzja plays h3. Okay, he clearly played these moves quickly. That is the setup that he chooses, and now Hikaru plays f6. This is ridiculous. I mean, this is just utterly ridiculous that you can play chess like this. And he is just going to play knight f7. And also, in many ways, he is going to fight for the center. So Firouzja now plays d4. Very principled move. Hikaru takes on d4, clearly in his preparation, and plays d5. Everything that Hikaru has done so far is obviously in his prep. Knight h6 is in his prep. The very natural c3, h3. Hikaru's playing according to plan, plays d5. And now Firouzja plays bishop d2 after 5 minutes of thought, and now Hikaru spends 17 minutes. Obviously, after d5, you have this in your notes. After d5, you have this in your notes. You have maybe one of these two queen moves in your notes. I don't know, bishop takes h6. But bishop d2 is played. Bishop d2 is a very multi-purpose move. First of all, you have ideas of moving the bishop in that direction. Second of all, you have ideas of playing rook c1. Third of all, you have ideas of playing queen c1, pressuring this and this. And that is why Hikaru spends a bit of time and plays queen b7, which the computer was not fully liking, but it also didn't hate. Black also can play bishop e6, rook b8, and knight f7. I mean, all of those moves have various ideas. Bishop e6 is re-strengthening the center, knight f7 obviously rerouting. Black should not take on e4, because this exchange leaves black with a pretty bad pawn on c6, but probably still manageable. But Hikaru plays queen b7, and then does this and this. And it's a web. I mean, it's a very messy position. Look how much time Firouzja spent. Firouzja spent 26 minutes pushing this, and then he spent another 28 minutes on another pawn push. This man spent 26 plus 28 equals 54 minutes of this game pushing 2 pawns. I don't understand how you're supposed to market this to mass audience, but okay, whatever. Luckily, I'm not the one, doing this. Now we have this position. Very imbalanced. Black has 2 bishops, but one of them is kind of a bozo. Now the bishop can route this way. The knight can also jump in this way. Black has pressure here. Firouzja now begins a very interesting positional game. He puts the bishop out there. He plays a3. And now wouldn't it be wonderful if he could get a knight to c5? Yep. He now takes the knight. This is very sharp stuff. And plays rook e2 with this idea. And also knight e1, knight d3. Firouzja understands that normally a bishop for a knight is a bad trade. But this is a closed position. And in a closed position, he is going to reroute his pieces and have a very nice bind. He is going to play knight d3, put a knight on c5, knight h2, put a knight on g4, and he's going to be happy. And his position is very pleasant. Hikaru does not have a lot of play, but he has a very decent position, very resilient position. And it is Firouzja who is dancing with his knights and making good progress. He plays h4. It's like looking like he's improving his position. And then he plays knight c5 and offers a draw. Game over. Draw agreed. And he takes Hikaru to the Armageddon. Okay. Here we go, boys. Now Hikaru plays e5. Friendly reminder. 10 minutes for white, 7 minutes for black, 1 extra bonus second on the 41st move of the game. If black makes a draw, black wins. And then black gets 1.5 points in the standings. Whoever wins the Armageddon gets 1.5 points. This time, Hikaru plays into Firouzja's Italian. Now, the reason Hikaru is playing into Firouzja's Italian is that in a rapid time control format like 10 minutes versus 7 in an Armageddon, first of all, the nerves are higher. Second of all, black can make a draw completely at leisure. And Hikaru just trusts his instincts because he's a number 1 or number 2 ranked rapid player in the world. It's him and Magnus. D3. And Firouzja plays this approach, which is very provocative, allowing black to play the move G5. And Hikaru plays king G7. And Hikaru goes knight back. He does not because now he has H5 and G4 and H4 and also the F pawn. Hikaru gets a massive attack going with his kingside pawns toward Firouzja's very unhappy bishop on the G3 square. H4, G4. Now the knight has to go. Hikaru plays F5. Look at this. I mean, it's an avalanche. Pawn to F4 and the next move is simply winning. EF. Now Hikaru can play bishop takes F5, but instead of that, he does this. And here, white can maybe even sacrifice the knight and create an attack. But Firouzja instead plays F6, giving up the pawn like this, and enters this position as he tries to blow up the center of the board. Look at the time. Firouzja was given 3 extra minutes at the beginning of this game, and it is down to 8 seconds. Hikaru has equaled the playing field. Folks, you have to understand something. If you are given 3 extra minutes, you need to make use of it. Of course, Firouzja knows that. I am not in any way, shape, or form claiming to be a better chess player than Ali Reza. All I'm saying is, now Hikaru is on equal terms against the guy, and he has a draw in his back pocket. If 67% of a chess game means a win for another side, that's very bad. So Firouzja now has to take massive risk. He has sacrificed the pawn, and in a moment, you are going to see him sacrifice his rook. Rook takes e5, d takes e5, rook takes f6, queen takes queen, bishop, rook takes... Look at this. Firouzja sacks his rook for a bishop, a knight, and a bishop. And we have this. Who's better? 2 rooks or 2 bishops and a knight? Traditional brain would tell you 2 rooks. Traditional brain would be right, especially if the 2 rooks can coordinate and start beating up the weaknesses. So, f3g, fgf, c5. Hikaru has now traded down into deep enough of a position that, here's the problem, folks. Can white win? This is not a question of who is better. This is a question of can white win? The answer to this question, as time is ticking down for both players, and Hikaru now has a 2.5 minute time advantage. No. White definitely cannot win. Hikaru sacrifices like this. White is left with nearly no pieces remaining, and Firouzja just resigns because Hikaru is going to push these pawns, and even if Hikaru does not win, what Hikaru will not do is lose. Hikaru wins in Armageddon against Firouzja. Hikaru has won every single matchup that he has played, except against Magnus. You're going to be kind of tough to beat if you do that. Speaking of Magnus, he was in his own battle against the Norwegian number 2. Tari has had a tough time. Tari is always up against it at this tournament. He is a very good player. He's not a 2853 rated player. He's also not a 2750 rated player. He's a 2650 rated player. Tari is exceptional, but the ceiling in chess is absurd. But it's always interesting to see. Magnus also plays a Sicilian. Tari plays the bishop b5 check Sicilian, and this kind of becomes a dragon. So much like I talked about the accelerated dragon, this is the Maroczy setup with e4, f3, g2, and c4, b3 potentially, and it's a setup that is very cancerous for black. It is very difficult for Magnus to beat his opponent in a position that looks like this. Look how solid white is. It's just very difficult. I mean, listen, this is like, you know, driving your car into a brick wall and saying, I made a dent in the wall. Yeah, but what about your car, right? I'm not saying I've ever done that, and I don't condone that at all. Now Magnus plays h5. All right, Magnus looking to try to expand a little bit on the king side and be a little bit provocative. e6, Tari plays h3, and now Magnus plays this move d5. And one of 2 things will happen when black plays d5. White will panic and lose all his pieces, because as the board is opening up, there's going to be crossfire among all the pieces. Or number 2, white is going to trade all the pieces and make a draw. CD, ED, ED, knight d5, knight d5, rook c1, rook c1, bishop d5, bishop takes a6, Tari is a pawn up. Queen e7. The bishop comes back because it did not want to get taken. Okay, Tari's pawn up, look at that. Well, no, he's not. So all the pieces got traded. It was a massive sequence of moves. The players are both left with b, f, g, h pawns, and the exact same material. However, one trade can make or break a game. So for example, if white plays bishop takes knight in this position, white is probably immediately going to be worse in the long run. Immediately in the long run. That was terrible English. But there's just absolutely no need to rush like that. Tari plays bishop c3, and Magnus plays knight e6. And again, we are at a moment where potentially we can have some trades, but this one would be bad for white, because you cannot take back the bishop. Queen e3, knight e6. And now the bishops come off the board. And it looks like we are headed for either a draw or a Magnus win. Why are we headed for a Magnus win? Because the evaluation bar says so. And also because Magnus is very good at squeezing water out of stone in positions that otherwise just don't look squeezable. All right? King h7. Rook d5 centralizing. Queen c7 pitting the bishop to the rook. To the queen, rather. Rook d8. Now, if bishop takes e6 is played in this position, there is rook d1 check deflecting the rook from the defense of the queen, which would be very tragic. Bishop f1 back. Magnus doesn't trade queens. Rook d2 infiltrating. There we go. There's the Magnus we know. Here is the Magnus that is going to crush another 2650 rated opponent in a position he has no business winning. Tari pushes his pawn to b5. Tari has pawns extended deep into the position that are barely being held onto, and his entire row of pieces is reduced to nothingness, aren't we all, on the back rank. Rook c2, he's just going to play on Tari's nerves. Bishop c4, now it's a heavy piece endgame. Queen g5. Magnus has a minute. He plays king g7. Queen d6, he's looking for his opportunity, and now rook b4. All right, rook b4. Magnus also could have played queen f4 in this position, which would have secured him a pawn, but I suppose he was not fully convinced that this was winning. He plays rook b4, and he's infiltrating closer. And in this position, he had a winning chance, which was rook f4, which is utterly ridiculous. And the idea is queen d4. The idea is to meet some rook c6 with queen d4, defending the pawn, cutting the king's escape, and rook h4. This was one of Magnus's missed ideas. Rook f4 was, not queen d4. But that one was a little bit dank. And now Tari goes for the king. And in this position, Magnus has a winning idea of queen a1. The point of queen a1 is to team up the rook and the queen. After something like queen f2, the king runs out. There's queen e5 check. And apparently, the king is just in some serious trouble here on the g3 square. Black is barely not winning this position, and it requires this incredible defensive resource f5. And still white is going to be down a pawn. But Magnus misses a win for the second time. And now Tari's king runs out. And I think there was one more moment here that it was scary, but look at this king. g4, and when it's all said and done, it's a queen endgame, and there's nothing. And Magnus is unable to win another classical game of chess. Folks, this is big. We have now played 6 out of 9 rounds. Magnus has not won a game in classical chess. I don't know the last time that this has happened. I mean, like, I feel like now is almost like every single time that Magnus hits a record of no, it's not a low light, but I mean, it's surprising. We're just kind of like, what's going on, you know? But they have to play Armageddon. And we just saw Hikaru defend in Italian in an Armageddon. Let's see how Magnus defends in Armageddon. A3, H3, he takes, he puts his knight in the center. He now wants to play B5, D5, and all this good stuff. There it is, pawn on D5. Very solid, right? Rook D8, and now Tari has to start attacking Magnus. Bishop C5, he puts the knight on F5. Tari is going for mate. Magnus says, okay, you want to come in? Your knight wants to come in? All right, fantastic, come in. Let's go. Come into my position. Knight H6. Come on, knight H6, look at that. Look alive, but if you play knight F5, I'm just going to go king H8 back. Well, Tari's here. Tari barked. Now he's got a bite. Queen G4. Bishop takes. Tari drops out with the knight. Takes like this. If you take, I'm going to take. There you go. I'm going to take on H. Wait. Wasn't that just a free knight? Yes. That was just a free knight. There would have been pressure here, here, and here. And Aryan Tari here has nearly 4 minutes up on the clock. He can take this knight for sure. Now, obviously, he probably thought about f4 looking quite good. The computer finds pawn takes d4 and is just completely unafraid of the position. But Tari is a human. And he thought that after this, he would have 2 hanging things that he could capture, which is why he did that. Magnus immediately jumps in, and the knight has arrived. And the knight is pressuring everything in the position. Queen h4, rook g8. Magnus blocks against the attack. Boom. Knight drops back. Rook d6. Rook h6. Aryan Tari has a trapped queen. Queen e5. Rook h6. And it is an obliteration. King g1. Rook takes g2. But before you play rook takes g2, you have to take the queen. Aryan Tari resigns. Magnus wins again in the Armageddon. So, outstanding. Folks, before you depart this recap, I would like to give you an update about Fabiano Caruana. Fabiano Caruana in this game had the black pieces versus Nodirbek Abdusattorov, and he played the Berlin. Fabiano Caruana is the leader of Norway chess. We have to cover his games. Yesterday, he overpressed a bit and he lost bishop c5 dc. This is called an anti-Berlin. Fabi plays bishop e6, plays bishop around to h5. It's a f6. This is the position. Very closed, 8 pawns each. What now? Fabiano also continues rotating his knight. He still will refuse to commit his king. And now he plays g5. And Fabi brings the fight to Nodirbek. 8 pawns each. The utmost of closed positions. Nodirbek plays knight to e2. It's still completely unclear what's going on. I feel like these pieces are just playing Twister. You ever play that game? Bishop f7. Okay. But now, this is a very clear indication of hostilities by Fabiano. Fabiano is trying to win this game. Fabiano Caruana is trying to extend his lead in the tournament. And Fabiano Caruana is trying to retake #2 in the world and wash Hikaru away from that spot. Take. Not only is the position closed, all 8 pawns are standing on their home squares, like on their home ranks. A4. H4. A5. B5, keeping that side closed. A6. Now both sides have been thwarted. Bishop doesn't see any targets. Now we have the following position. Now, D4. Very tense moment. What is going to happen? Is the pawn going to take the pawn? Is the pawn going to take the pawn? Is the pawn going to push? Is the pawn going to take? Is the pawn going to take? Is the pawn going to push? What is going to happen? Fabi says, you make the decision. This is the pawn going, what do you want to eat for dinner? You want Thai? You want Mexican? You want pizza? And this pawn saying, you choose, I don't care. Now, faced with the decision of Thai, pizza, and Mexican food, or the counter option of, I don't care, you choose, white responds, I don't care, you choose. Now, black has the option of Thai, pizza. Forgot the other one. Thai, pizza. What did I say? Oh my God. I have streamer brain. Maybe I'll remember it by the end. I said Thai, pizza. Oh my God, this is so frustrating. I feel like you're gonna just be yelling at me at home. All right, we're just gonna move on and I'm gonna watch the replay and then I'm gonna remember. King F8. King G7. This is ridiculous. This is it's like a staring contest. Nobody's moving. Queen F2. The entire game is just going on. Queen C7. Now that sees that, so you probably have to go B4. Nope. Now B4. Bro, this is staring at that, which 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 is staring at that. This is ridiculous. Nobody, I mean, the tension of the pawns is killing me. Finally. Queen E7. Now it's back to the tension. It's back to the maneuvering. Nodjerbek takes. Fabi takes. Pressure here. Again, all close positions. Pawn breaks. Pawn breaks. And maneuvering. Pair of rooks has been traded. What's going to happen in the long run here? Can the bishop get to these pawns? Can this bishop get to these pawns? Probably this is a draw, but we're going to... Oh! Nodjerbek is counterattacking. He's attacking on this side, but this could soften up these pawns. Bishop E6 and knight F7. H4. Uh-oh. Poking. Prodding. Queen H8, H5. The pawn is snuck through, but it's still equal. King G2. Now Nodjerbek is looking for some sort of rook H1. Queen H6, King F2. He's bringing his king, but now Fabiano rips open the position again. Bishop E3. The queen goes back to H8. Pawn takes G4. You can take it, but Fabi rotates the queen. Infiltrating on C2 and giving the bishop a little bit of backup to the G4 pawn. He takes, and now the bishop plays bishop H3, simultaneously creating an opening for 2 pieces on the G4 square. The king slides out of the way, now infiltrates the queen, and he takes on E4. Is the position disintegrating, or is Fabiano's king in danger on the H7 square? Knight to E3. Knight takes H6 played. Now, rook G1 and bringing the rook back is the right decision, but instead Nodjerbek can't resist. He takes on C4, but now King G7. Bishop F8. Deflecting the king backwards. Queen H6. And the knight comes back. But when the dust settles, it's Fabiano Caruana up 2 pawns. And it is Fabiano Caruana marching the pawns forward. F3 check. White resigns in view of queen to F4. Fabi just won with black. Not only did Fabi just win with black, Fabiano Caruana leads with 13.5, up 2.5 points on Hikaru, who is up 2.5 points on Alireza. It is the Fabi and Hikaru show in Norway, and I don't even think they've played each other, but to be honest, they might have played each other, and I just forgot. But I don't even think they've played each other, because I already forgot what I said there. Hikaru is now no longer world number 2. He's down to world number 3. Very close race with Alireza. Norway chess is heating up, and Magnus Carlsen tied for 6th and 7th place out of 10. Shocking. Half a point out of 8th. What's going to happen in the next few rounds? We better find out. Get out of here.